Hello, and welcome everyone. I'm Jessica Jacobson, editor of Beverage Industry, and today we have a special video interview with Justin Solomon, Category Marketing Director of Alcoholic Beverages at ADM, to discuss what's driving innovation in alcoholic beverages. Thank you for joining me today, Justin.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Great. Well, to begin, we know that consumers have changed the way they approach alcoholic beverage consumption, particularly since the pandemic. At home consumption still is prevalent for consumers, but what type of alcoholic beverages are they opting for in this setting?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jessica. So, a few things are really driving their current consumption choices. So, first, during the pandemic, of course, a lot of people did a lot of work on their houses. They also learned a lot of new skills. So, they learned how to cook, they learned how to make cocktails. So, during the pandemic, people were very eager to test out those skills among their friends and family at their homes. We've also, of course, been experiencing inflation. We've seen it here in the US, we've seen it around the world, and consumers now are trying to really grapple with how to make ends meet essentially. And so what we're seeing now is consumers continuing to do the things they did during the pandemic. They got used to being at home, eating at home, drinking at home, entertaining at home. And so we continue to see that. Now, as far as your question goes about what are they actually drinking, of course, they're drinking a wide variety of things. So first and foremost, beer is top of mind. So beer makes up about 73% of the total volume of alcohol sold in the US. So that's clearly a big thing people are drinking at home. 47% of millennials and 32% of Gen Z say that they enjoy drinking beer at home. And 39% of millennials have said that they find beer to fit their lifestyle. So beer is clearly something that has been top of mind for consumers when they're drinking at home. Now, I will caveat that with beer has been seeing some declines. It's been down about 2% per year for the last 5 years. So that is something from a data perspective that we're seeing in the market. The other thing they're drinking in the second largest segment of alcohol overall is wine. That's something we've seen consumers continue to drink. And wine makes up about 10% of the total alcohol market. It has also been slightly declining, down about 1% per year over the last 5 years. Now, it's also a big choice for at home consumption. We found that about a third of US consumers state that they like wine at home, specifically among the millennial cohort in North America. So, a very big portion of consumers really like the wine segment, and about 43% of millennials drink at home specifically. So, it's a pretty large group of people drinking wine. The area that has seen, I would say, the most growth recently in the past 5 years or so is the ready to drink segment. And just so we're on the same page with what ready to drink means, it's really any canned or bottled product, alcoholic product beyond beer or cider. That is ready to consume. So it often is a flavored product that consumers will be drinking. And one of the main places that people are drinking these products is at home. So this could be hard seltzers, this could be ready to drink cocktails, wine-based products, malt-based products, all would fit into that overarching category that we are calling ready to drink. So ready to drink makes up about 9% of the alcohol category, and it has grown a lot over the last 5 years, up 21% per year on average over the last 5 years. So growing very rapidly. And consumers really like drinking these products because, as I mentioned, it includes a ton of variety. So wine is kind of wine, beer is kind of beer, but ready to drinks can be just about anything else. So it provides a lot of flavor experiences and variety that consumers are really looking for. And Gen Z in particular has been really engaged with the ready to drink segment. So they find it to be a very social drink for them. So they like to drink it just about anywhere. Ready to drink cocktails, hard seltzers has been really a big segment for legal drinking age Gen Z consumers out there. And then the last thing I'll say about at home consumption, I mentioned as I started answering this question was about people making cocktails and bartending at home. So the last major segment that consumers are really opting for at home would be spirits. So spirits are very flexible. Of course, you can drink it on the rocks straight up. You can make a cocktail. So there's a lot of things that you can do with spirits, and consumers have really enjoyed that flexibility. It's allowed them to express some creativity with drinks. Of course, RTDs are a big thing because people don't always want to be creative and try to mix their own thing or have time to mix their own drinks. But it is certainly something that consumers have opted for. So, in general, you're seeing within alcohol, there's a lot of opportunities for consumers to experiment with different formats and flavors and try things out in the comfort of their own homes going forward. That answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it gave us a perfect overview of all the different ways that, consumers are getting their beverage alcohol consumption at home. But
Great.
I know we've also seen consumers gravitating to low and no alcohol products.
Yeah.
What has prompted this interest, and is this universal, or are there certain demographics whom are more engaged with these products?
Yeah, that's another great question. So the main driver behind the low and no alcohol is of course this push for better for me. So consumers looking for products that they believe will help them be their best version of themselves, I guess is the best way to say it. So among legal drinking age Gen Z, we've seen 54% of US consumers and 44% of Canadian state that they do have not consumed alcohol in the last 6 months. So clearly, that's a very large portion of this newest drinking age consumer. And so that's a big area that we need to be aware of. And Gen Z in general is very concerned about their long term wellness. So, we recently conducted a study among consumers, and we found that 71% of Gen Z consumers globally stated that they're taking a proactive approach to health and they're centered on prevention. So, this is significantly higher than any other generation that we polled in this. So, clearly, Gen Z is a big area that's of interest for this low and no alcohol segment. We also found that 56% of millennials state that they have reduced their alcohol consumption really since the pandemic. So it's a large group, and those are the main two generations that are engaged in this low and no alcohol segment that we are finding. Now, one thing I do want to call out, there has been huge growth in this segment. However, it is a very small segment of the alcohol market overall. It's kind of around that 1% of the total category mark, but it is growing very fast recently. Um, and we're also seeing on that kind of health and wellness side of things, the consumers looking for better for you products. We've also seen that consumers are looking for, of course, reduced alcohol, low, no alcohol, also reduced sugar. That's one of the main reasons consumers really gravitated toward hard seltzers, and that is as big of a part of the market as it is today. Is that Gen Z and millennials are really gravitating toward these kind of better for me type products out there. So I would say, while product innovation is rapidly rising in this low, no ABV space, there is still a very large opportunity out there. As I mentioned, it's still only about 1% of the total market. So there is much more opportunity given the interest from all generations, really. It's certainly not just Generation Z and millennials that are drinking these products, but they are the driving force behind the trend that we're seeing. So overall, as we look at the data on low and no alcohol products, they're up overall 33% versus Nielsen, or 33% versus year ago, according to Nielsen. So, and that's looking at the 12 months ending in June of this year versus the previous 12 months. That's a really healthy growth rate. One of the strongest growth rates we're seeing anywhere within alcohol. Now, that is, as we look at that overall segment of alcohol free, the biggest thing is beer. So, beer makes up about 88% of the total market, which isn't surprising because you have really big name brands, well known brands with these alcohol free products. You also have new alcohol free beer brands coming out that have created a really strong consumer following out in the marketplace. The second main area of alcohol free would be alcohol free wine. It is Alcohol free wine is growing very quickly. It's about 10% of the total market. It's up 36% versus a year ago. So that's a big one. Now, so if you add those two numbers together, that gets us to about 98% of the total alcohol free segment. And I do want to caveat that these numbers are within food, drug, mass, and convenience channels within the US. So it's not taking into account liquor stores or food service, which, of course, in this segment of the market can be rather sizable, but unfortunately, I don't have those numbers to track. So the last area that we're seeing a lot of growth within those channels is within the non-alcoholic spirit section. So this includes non-alcoholic spirits as well as ready-to-drink products, and those are up 84% versus a year ago. So it's the smallest of those segments, but it is growing the fastest, and is an area that we're seeing a lot of interest. And really, the biggest growth we're seeing is in those ready to drink alcohol free products out in the market. So consumers are consuming these products in a number of different ways. So one of the hard things is to say, like, no, it's just people who have decided not to drink at all. Like I mentioned at the start, Gen Z, and how many of them have not had a drink in 6 months. That is not nearly the sole reason people are drinking these low and no alcohol products. So some people certainly decide they don't want to drink alcohol anymore, and so they will drink these products. Other consumers, for whatever reason, maybe they have to wake up in the morning, they go out to dinner, or they have friends over, they decide for whatever reason on that occasion, they don't want to drink alcohol. So they will opt towards these alcohol free type products. But then maybe the next night they decide they're going to drink alcohol. And I unfortunately don't know all the reasons that consumers make those choices, but they certainly have their reasons for making them. And then another big proportion of consumers are intermixing these alcohol free drinks with alcoholic products. So maybe a different consumer might decide, hey, I need to get up tomorrow morning. I'm having friends over. So I'm going to drink a cocktail or a wine or a beer, and then I'm going to switch to something non alcoholic right after that. And then I might go back to wine or beer after that. So it really varies. But the important thing to know is, as you're thinking about the alcohol free segment, is it's very small still. There is still a lot of room to grow, and consumers are partaking in this category in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, it's all very exciting. But
Yeah.
with this trend, how are you seeing the high ABV sector be impacted?
Yeah. Yeah. You would think, given the kind of robustness of this trend around low and no alcohol, the growth rates we've seen, you would think that we'd see a big dip in the higher ABV products, especially as you think about some of those RTD segments in particular. But actually, what we're seeing is quite the opposite. So, um, among Gen Z and millennials, higher ABV cocktails and beer seem to be very, very popular to them. So we recently conducted some consumer research to understand preferences around ABV. And while most of the market, when you're looking at beer, ciders, and RTDs in particular, wine and spirits are a little different, of course. So when you're looking at those three segments of the market, most of the products fall within 4 to 6% ABV. I would say that's about 90% of the market without actually having data behind that. But what we found in this survey, so we did a study among 1,000 ready to drink consumers, and we found that almost 80%, 79% to be exact, wanted over 7% alcohol by volume in their drinks. So really interesting, again, given kind of where the market is. And from a dollar perspective, I would actually say the dollar growths we're seeing in this higher ABV segment is far greater than the growth we're seeing in the low and no alcohol segment of the market. And this is a trend that we're really seeing play out across beer, cider, and RTDs. Consumers just really like the idea, and I attribute their interest in this space to a number of different things. One being, we talked about kind of inflation and things like that, the increasing cost of living, things along those lines. Consumers really see these higher ABV products as a way to get value in a market where sometimes they feel like there's not much value to be found. So they are opting for these, and they get more bang for the buck. They feel the benefit of these products. They feel the buzz more quickly with these products than kind of those lower ABV products. So in the market, what we're seeing is a lot of products, even over 9%, doing very well. So in beer, 9% plus beers have been really growing quite rapidly and are driving a lot of the growth in that space. Ciders is the same thing. Imperial ciders with 9.5% ABV are kind of the main area within ciders that are growing. And then, just as a little anecdote, I just heard this announced within the last couple years. So Molson Coors recently announced their main innovation spaces for next year. And I believe all of their innovation spaces for next year are in these elevated ABV versions of their existing brands. So line extension of existing products and brands into these higher ABVs. And we've seen other companies and brands do the same thing over the last couple of years, and they've seen some really strong success in that.
Wow, I mean, it's a very exciting time, it sounds like, for that area for sure.
It is. It's very fun to watch. It kind of showed up about the trend first started maybe like a year and a half, 2 years ago, and it just continues to take off. And you're seeing a lot of companies kind of try to catch up with this trend happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and given all of this information, it can be challenging to know what flavors align with consumers' alcoholic beverage choices. What flavor inspirations are playing well with consumers?
Yeah, that's a good and very broad question because of course consumers have a lot of different interests, and certainly I guess I'll start off with answering with kind of this idea of better for you, going back to what I talked about in the low and no alcohol segment. This idea of better for you has been driving a lot of flavor preferences we've seen. We recently conducted a study, a similar study to the one I was talking about before, among consumers, asking them what the most compelling claims were. So I had seen in the marketplace lots of different claims from many different alcohol companies, and I really wanted to figure out like which of these claims are really moving the needle among consumers. So I tested about 10 to 12 different claims that we're seeing out there on packaging. And the one that drove the most consumer appeal in my study of about 1,000 consumers was this made with real fruit juice. Like that claim itself was really compelling to consumers. So as you think about better for you, this made with real fruit juice idea feels very natural. It feels like it's not going to contain things that I don't want in my diet, in my body, etc. Now, one thing to keep in mind as we've been talking about better for you, um, we do not want to claim that even alcohol free cocktails are good for you or healthy or good for your health, but they are certainly, we do feel like it's a good way for consumers to relax, these are good products for relaxation, enjoying the moment, things like that. I don't think consumers are not going to the segment to improve their health. But that doesn't mean they aren't looking for ingredients that they associate with health and well-being. So after that little caveat, back to that study I was talking about. The number two claim that we found was compelling for consumers and is along the same line of better for you is made with natural flavors and colors. That is a claim that consumers have were really compelled by. It was very close to that made with real fruit juice claim as far as what moved the needle the most among consumers. Another thing we're seeing along those lines are botanicals. Like we've seen a huge trend toward botanicals over the last 2 years, I would say. So cardamom, tamarind, ginger has been a really big flavor. We've seen a lot of like spicy cocktails, spicy drinks. Spice has really run the gamut from spirit-based ready-to-drink cocktails to beer to malt-based products. Spice has been something that consumers have been really interested in. We've also seen a lot of varietals do well. So another big trend we've seen is this searching for exotic flavors and flavor experiences. So we've seen a lot of Asian flavors, South American flavors, Mexican flavors continue to be really popular. That's one of the big reasons spice is what it is. And I had just mentioned that. Middle Eastern flavors as well have done really well. And again, they tend to tie back to this kind of better for you positioning. So back to the varietals piece. So we've seen calamansi, which is a unique Asian citrus fruit. So it's from the Philippines, used a lot there. Seeing that trending a lot. Blood orange has been a big one. Yuzu is a really big flavor. It's funny, in the flavor industry at ADM, we've known about and talked about yuzu for years and years. It's really started to catch on with consumers now as well, and you're seeing that really coming on strong in the marketplace out there. So um, those are some of, as I mentioned, Asian, Middle Eastern. I mentioned cardamom. Fig has been an interesting flavor that started to show up. I've seen that showing up in social listening around the alcohol category recently, and consumers interested in the fig flavor. Also on varietal beyond citrus, like consumers are interested, like they don't want apple, they might want a Fuji apple, they might want a Honeycrisp apple, something along those lines to give more nuance to kind of those flavor profiles is really something that we're seeing in the market. So as far as other flavors go, we've seen an interesting one around cherry blossom, for instance. Another Middle Eastern flavor, sumac, has been one that's really been showing up recently. So that's a very unique and fun flavor. Coriander, sage, for instance, we've seen a lot of savory cocktails as well, especially as you look into the bar space within alcohol. You're seeing a lot of savory and culinary inspired flavors showing up within the bar scene. And I imagine we will see those coming into the retail space in the future as well. And of course, classic cocktails is another one that I feel like I just have to mention because there's been a huge trend around martinis recently, in particular martinis. So lemon drops,
apple martinis, Cosmos, espresso martini has been a huge one. But then on top of that, of course, classic martinis, dirty martinis have been a really big trend that we're seeing in the marketplace. The espresso martini is one of the fastest growing products within alcohol right now. It's up to over 260% over the last 4 years in social listening. So espresso martinis are a huge one. If you've been to a bar in the last year, they probably have an espresso martini on the menu, as well as a few variations on the classic there as well. For beer and beer mixes, of course, that's a little different. You've seen a lot of non-traditional. We've seen a lot of growth in kind of that flavored beer space as well. So I attribute a lot of the growth in this space to that popularity of those ready to drink products. So hard seltzers, ready to drink cocktails, vodka sodas, these like flavor experiences, variety packs that give kind of a different flavor experience with different products. I think that's really caught on within the beer space as well, where consumers are looking for kind of more fun and exciting. And you're seeing that in micheladas and cheladas, which of course are Mexican inspired products out in the market. So we've seen a lot of that. And also, this is also going into the non alcoholic space as well. We've just seen consumers really interested in these unique and different flavor experiences across the board.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Justin, for taking the time to discuss all the inspiring innovations that are impacting alcoholic beverages.
Absolutely. Again, thank you for having me. It's been fun talking to you, Jessica.
Great. And for more insights on the beverage market, please visit www.bevindustry.com for articles, videos, podcasts, and more.